Welcome, everybody, to Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes. I'm the Chief Systems Architect and Sales Architect here and author of Bulletproof Selling. Here at Bulletproof Selling, we believe that hope is not a sales strategy, something I'm sure our guest is going to agree with me today on. And we are here today to help increase the performance of salespeople and the results of their sales team. So this selling series that we have, this live stream series, features great interviews from the top minds in sales, best-selling authors, trainers, and those that are still out there in the field managing salespeople, the folks on the front lines, if you will. And so our commitment on this show is that every single time you're with us, we're going to develop a process, a system that you can use no matter the size of your teams or the size of your goals. And so I am really excited to be talking today with another Tampanite, or a Tampite. I don't know how you would really say, like, you're from Tampa, but we're both from Tampa, Florida. So we're enjoying the beautiful weather down here as the rest of the nation is freezing its butt off. I got to meet Chad's company about this time last year, in fact, when we were doing some work for the Association of Equipment Distributors. And wow, I mean, talk about the massive pieces of equipment you see on the side of the road, the backhoes, the just huge $1 million sometimes pieces of equipment that are building our roads, keeping our nation flowing. That's exactly what Chad does. Now, Chad has, I'm going to let him talk in a minute. I'm just really excited to introduce him today. Chad is a really unique position because not only does he manage salespeople, he's still active in the sales role himself. So he's still held to quota. He's still held to make stuff happen. So Chad, we are going to talk about all kinds of great stuff with leadership and how the world of sales is changing. But please, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself, man, and we will dive in. We're going to have some fun.
All right. Yeah, my name's Chad Hastings, obviously. As you stated, I'm a branch manager for Alta Equipment Group, which is the Volvo heavy equipment dealer, along with about 12 other lines of equipment that we carry currently for the entire state of Florida. I'm the branch manager for the Tampa AOR, which is about 8 counties. I've got about 6 salesmen that report directly to me. I've got about another 40 to 50 personnel between parts and service that report to me as well. And I do, as you stated, actively sell. I've been with the company for about 14 years, and all of those years were in the sales arena until about 3 years ago when I took the branch manager position, which introduced me more into.
I love that. And so it's interesting. You got one of those sales positions where you're wearing the chief operations hat, you're wearing the chief customer service rep hat, the chief revenue officer hat. You got a lot of hats, dude. How do you make all that happen?
It's the truth. I mean, it can pull you in about 10 different ways. The first year was a learning curve, to say the least. I mean, I've been used to being out on the road, doing things on my own, really kind of worrying about my own productivity and how I'm going to get the next deal. And coming in here, it's 50 more people, 50 more problems, and 50 more opportunities, though. I mean, it really has been a great opportunity to get in, make some positive changes, try to drive the customer service aspect a little bit further towards the sales side, I guess you could say, but at the same time, looking out for the company and making sure our best interests are in line as well.
And I know you're in an industry where your salespeople are often responsible for pulling in the initial prospects or new prospects, making them customers. But then it's really up to everybody inside of the organization to keep them as clients, because I know a lot of your revenue in your business model comes from the fact that clients are bringing you these pieces of equipment to service, to upgrade, to keep running. And if you dork that up, or if your service people dork that up, salesperson could do a great job, but that's the end of the deal, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a saying. It's kind of, I would say, post recession back in 08, 09, 2010. Sales can sell the first piece. Product support sells everything afterwards. It's never been more true. It's quite honestly one of the reasons I wanted to start this role, because I knew that just going prospecting is it's a fun piece of it. It's my favorite part of it. But at the same time, having the whole company, the whole organization standing behind the goal is paramount. Without it, you will fail.
Yeah, it absolutely is true. And so when we were talking a little bit in the pre-show, a little green room session we had about the fact you've got 6 salespeople, you're managing sales as well. So there are going to be some listeners out there that they're in your seat and they're like, dude, I feel your pain. I got to sell. I'm held to number, and I got to manage people that are held to number. So how do you find the time yourself to not only take care of your prospecting, your outreach, your relationships, but also make sure other people are doing what they should be doing in this area as well?
Well, it's so what I've done is I would say I'm in sales. I've got some key accounts that I've developed over the last 12 years that luckily for me, I don't spend as much time prospecting. I leave those prospecting more open to my reps. But to be flat honest, I spend a lot of time at night doing my own stuff. And I spend from 7 to 5, I available to myself. So, and I don't despise that. It doesn't cause me angst. It's just, I've kind of got, you know what, I can handle my own stuff, blocks of time, but there's a lot of people questions, and to keep the machine moving, it's prioritizing and making sure that we move through. And, success out of my guys is what makes us better. I know pretty much what I'm going to sell going into a year. Growing them is what really moves the needle for us here.
Let's talk about how their world kind of changed a little bit, because I know in your industry is heavy on outside sales in 2019 and before, and then COVID happened, and suddenly I know your reps are hitting businesses and hitting accounts where the doors are locked. They just can't get in because people are working from home now. So talk to me a little bit about how your folks dealt with that transition, really kind of about this time last year, like the February, March, April timeframe. What did you see change in either the way that they were reaching customers, how they were reaching them, the amount of touches they were able to have, or did they all just show up and be like, Chad, world's changed, man, what do we do? How did that play out for you?
So it's actually interesting because I've got some reps, and I've actually hired 2 reps since COVID began. For them, it's been very difficult. They have no pre-existing relationships. They're young. They're in the compact sales end. But the fear of stepping into somebody's office where you're not welcome, where they're trying to make sure that the distancing really caused a lot of headaches. For some of the more reps, they have the relationships. So for a lot of their existing clients, they can make that phone call. Hey, meet me out by the bed of the truck. The buyer will come outside, talk to you for a little while. They can work through it. The younger guys have spent a ton of email marketing. They spend a ton of time calling, just trying to get to the decision maker, trying to see if they are welcome to come into their location to talk to them. It's put a lot more legwork, but quite honestly, it's really opened some prospecting even for some of the older guys that realize I drive around circles. I'm going to try to target. I'm going to try to talk to these people first, have something to talk about, so I don't have a blind sales meeting. Sitting down across my customer and, hey, I'm Chad, and I don't know what to talk about.
Who are you? What do you do?
Buy a bunch of my equipment. Exactly, like more targeting. So we did see a lot of that improve. I mean, it's gotten better. The first couple, say March, April, were brutal. I mean, it was nobody knew what to do, but we've kind of.
And then with your sales team, because I know in your industry, you have some salespeople that have been doing what they're doing for their whole lives, 20, 30, 40 years sometimes. And you got some folks, like you said, that are brand new to the industry. How do you split the salespeople up on your team? Is it like half veterans, half new folks? How does that work for you?
So we basically split into compact equipment and heavy equipment would be the big $500,000.
What about like a tenure of salespeople then, I guess is my question, as far as, how long they've been selling in this industry?
Young guys are in the compact. They come into the compact. Most of them have been in for 2 to 4 years. Into the heavy, you normally have done at least 2 to 4 compacts. So you'll have a range. I mean, it's most of our heavy guys have at least 5 to 6 years experience in the construction sales industry. So that's normally how we break them up.
And then
I've got about a 50.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
I got 3 and 3.
3 and 3, so perfect. Split down the middle. All right, so this is going to be a really good example then. I love talking to sales leaders about this because I'm always surprised at what I learned. Like I go in the conversation thinking the young folks must be really good at this, and the veterans are going to be really good at that. They're going to hate each other for these reasons. Often not the case. So I'd love to know from you, how do you see your junior salespeople and your senior salespeople, if we're going to refer to them, in that way, you're 3 and 3. How do each of them go about their day differently as salespeople? Because here at Bulletproof Selling, we're all about trying to figure out what's working and what's not and trying to model that. And so I'd love to know, do you see your junior salespeople relying a lot more on social media, a lot more on text, and your senior salespeople are just trying to get in the door again, face-to-face conversations? That's what I assume, but please educate me.
You're about dead on. I mean, the 2 best junior reps I have are all over Instagram. They're one actually helps run our Instagram program out of this area.
Okay.
Great job on LinkedIn. He does a great job on just any avenue he can go through, Facebook, all the social media, and they connect really well with the guys. The senior reps, not so much. We're all 40 plus, and they do okay with it, but they're nowhere near the level of complexity. And I'll be honest, it's actually been impressive to see how much business we've been getting from those avenues. I actually underestimated myself how much the social media and all that really plays out, but I think it is a generational change, and I think a lot of the good quality been able to, make the change as well to some extent. But a lot of the young guys, it's a huge piece of what they do.
And then for those
So
senior people, then are they having to? Because obviously we're in a virtual world now, so we might have been all outside salespeople, regardless of how long we were in the industry. Now we're either inside or hybrid. Do you find that your senior people was there a ramp up time to get them familiar enough with platforms like Zoom and virtual meetings, or were they still just trying to I'm just going to call and I'm going to wait until I can get in person? That because that's the way that I do it. How did you see that play out, and is it still working that way for you?
it can play out with a lot of them. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of the senior guys. They've done it this way for a long time. They're comfortable. They believe some of them believe it's not personable. That it takes the handshake and the deal signed on a napkin kind of out of the equation. But they
Right.
are steadily coming around. It's a lot of the advancement of technology and social media alone in the last 5 years has been unbelievable at warp speed. So a lot of these guys have had to struggle a little bit along the way, but they are stepping up, and our company's invested in it. So there's really not much of a choice. You're either going to learn and adapt, or you're going to get left behind.
Right.
So
And for that, because you're in a model like we mentioned at the beginning of this chat, where the salespeople have they have to have a really integrated handoff to service, and service has to have a really integrated handoff back to sales. And it's this loop that exists in your business model, has to be tight, has to take care of the customer every step of the way. Because you talk to a lot of branch managers, you're in this field, you got a lot of peers in the network. What do you find the common mistakes are that other branch managers are making in that handoff, where sales, I can do everything possible to build the relationship. We can get a great deal for you on that piece of equipment, but my service
yeah.
team, they're just not getting it back on time. It's not done right. And suddenly that sours the whole relationship. What are some of the mistakes that you see other branch managers in your industry making in this sales to service handoff?
I think the communication piece is key. We actually introduced an app-based type of communication for salesmen. Most customers in our industry, service, they're calling their sales rep. They're not calling the service department. They want to call their rep. They want him involved. This app, the rep fills out all the information. We found that a lot of the salesmen are pretty lazy about service. So they call in
Right.
and say, hey, just call the guy and fix it. They put the ownership on the sales rep to try to service department, because they're extremely busy. I mean, they're working 24/7. They've got the most thankless job in the building, to be totally honest. They're always the bad guy. And
Yep.
it has helped out tremendously. Communication wise, it creates an email. Everybody's on the chain. We have timestamps. We have all the information we need. Customers contact. Cleaned it up tremendously. The other side is, honestly, as a branch manager, backing your service department, and not it's very easy. It's very easy to like the sales department and to think that everything's about the deal. But there's so many times where if you don't set expectations, or you set the wrong expectations for the customer, you're setting others up for failure. And it happens so often of, our turnaround time on a repair is 4 to 6 hours. Well, it's not. Is we actually at the moment are, but there's been many times where we weren't. And in telling the customer up front, look, I can't promise we'll get there to you today. Those types of decisions and those types of comments can be very helpful, or under promise and over deliver. The opposite is not a fun situation for anybody involved. So I think those are probably the two key areas where I see a lot of people fail.
And then for the handoff, if you didn't have the app, because I know a lot of branch managers don't have that app. I know your customer, or your business, your company. That's what I was looking for. Was forward thinking enough to invest in this piece of technology. A lot of folks don't have it. So if you're advising another branch manager, he calls up, says, "Chad, I just took over this office here. I've got this whole branch to myself now. We don't have the app, but my salespeople are struggling a bit with the handoff to service and making sure that they're still a point of contact for the customer. They're always going to be calling their salesperson for an answer. They're not going to try to dial the 800 number of the service department all the time." What would you advise those branch managers do in order to make sure that the customer was kept up to date through the salesperson as that kind of single point of contact, to make sure that the customer's relationship is still intact, even if something's late, not done on time, all the things that could go wrong in service?
I mean, if you're not, I will tell you, just to speak to it, this thing's been the most amazing decision we've made. We did it very ethical, and it's unbelievable. It holds everybody accountable. When it's a phone call, all of a sudden somebody can forget what time it was, or who called who, or if they're telling the customer to call in. It so many different, and say that if you don't have that in place, accountability and documentation on the sales force and your service department are key. And quite honestly, if it wasn't in place, I would really try to guide my customers communicating directly with my service department and leaving the salesman out of the loop. Just because as many mistakes as some of the dispatchers and some of the service department make, I find far more with us. I mean, they're moving, they're going. It's not necessarily at the top of their priority list at the moment. They're trying to go sell $1 million in equipment, and then I got to get somebody out here to fix this. So really, I mean, I would say that's how I'd handle it. But honestly, the way I'd handle it is I go get the app, because I'm telling you.
I agree with the app. I love it. I love it. One word you did mention is absolutely priority for most of the sales leaders that we've been able to talk to, and it's the word accountability. So you mentioned accountability. The app helps your folks stay accountable from the sales to service handoff. Talk to me a little bit about where you see the biggest challenge for salespeople in your industry, across the country, all the salespeople you've gotten to meet in the course of your career. Where's the biggest problem with accountability up and down the chain of command, if you will, up to their branch manager and up to their sales officer, if they have a position like that?
So normally, accountability wise, some of the excuses, guys getting in milk routes is what we call. I mean, that's something that we're constantly holding them accountable for. Meaning by that, you have a territory. Let's say you have 50 prospects. In the first 2 years, you get into the first 8 to 10 that are easy, and then all of a sudden, all the quotes, all the activity you see are the same 8 to 10 guys. That's an area that we hold highly accountable. It's something that I've seen branch managers in the past try to reward guys who aren't as other guys, actually give them more opportunity to try to kind of balance the numbers out. I'm the opposite. The more you sell and the higher your share, the more opportunity I'm going to give you, no matter how much more you're selling. So that's an area of accountability, and just overall, they're type A's. Most salesmen are type A personalities. Organizational skills and follow-up tend to suffer a little bit, especially internally. They may do it for the customer, but internally, tracking down paperwork, getting things, after the sale is completed, signed, and all that, it can be a little bit of a journey at times.
So it sounds like there's lots of challenges we could dive into, but I'd love to be able to address one specifically, because the tactical takeaways are often the biggest benefit somebody listening to an interview like this. So let's talk about accountability over the prospects that we're not touching. If you give me 100 prospects and I say, great, Chad, I'm going to go work them. Of course, I'm going to try to get the ones that are going to be the pieces of low-hanging fruit first, the easy wins. And like you said, it could just be those 10 or maybe a dozen accounts over the course of a year, what you see me working. You get into my system, my CRM, you're like, Sean, what happened to the other 40 or 90 accounts that I turned over to? You haven't talked to them in 6 months, 10 months, whatever that is. So let's build a system to make sure that your salespeople can track this, that anybody with this problem, because it's endemic in the sales industry, can really make sure they get a handle on holding their salespeople accountable to really touch the entire prospect base or the entire territory that they're accountable for. So in the world of bulletproof selling, we try to arrange this thing in a logical way, and we use the term, we got to trim hope from our sales strategy. So hoping my salespeople reach all 900 prospects in their territory probably ain't going to work out. But you and I know we can use accountability, CRMs, the things that we know how to do to make sure they're doing the right job. So the first part of this acronym of trim the hope from sales strategy, is T, the trigger. So if you're holding salespeople accountable, what is the trigger for you to make sure that they are reaching out and getting a hold of the prospects, all of them inside of your territory? Does that look like a quarterly check-in? Is it you getting into their CRM and looking at all of the prospect touches they've had? How do you know to really begin looking into this?
So what we'll normally do, CRM, yes, we'll use a CRM, and I try to set goals. If an account's been very difficult, let's start by just opening the account. Okay, let's get in there and find a reason for them to fill out a credit app and say, hey, we just want to be here in case you need us. One. Step two, let's rent them something. Let's just, if it's a plate tamp, whatever, start working our way in. In order to track, we use the CRM. So we'll go in and I can pull and I can see what accounts are open, what accounts are not open. We've loaded them. They're all assigned by rep across the state. So, I mean, there's no black and white. There's a couple areas where there's crossover, but, by utilizing the CRM, we can then also check quote activity. So that's another area where we can go at the end of the year. It's not just how much did you sell? How many customers did you sell to? What percentage penetration did you have into your market? How many did you quote? What percentage penetration, even though maybe you didn't sell as much, have you achieved? Because a lot of times in our business, it takes a couple of years for somebody.
It's a long sales cycle. Yeah.
Trust this. So you can see the trend pretty early on in the first 6 to 8 months. Okay, this guy's making calls. He's quoting a bunch of them, and he's quoting a bunch of different people. That is your ideal rep. And over time, he'll be one of your top performers. So yeah, CRM has been a great tool for us. We are partially using our CRM at the moment. We're actually we're going into the same CRM system, but a lot more accessibility here on June 1st. And
Okay, yeah, so that'll help you actually do more of what we're talking about then. Okay, so
correct.
I
Yes,
want to make sure I understand the trigger then, so I can use this because I'm managing salespeople. I need to make sure they're touching all their prospects too. So if the trigger is getting into CRM, does that happen on a timeline for you, or are you really looking at, is that person performing? And if they're not, then my coaching moment is to get in their CRM and figure out, are you making contact with all your accounts? Which of those is more for you?
I do it myself pretty regularly. It just kind of every now and then when I've got a period of time, and if I know a guy's struggling, I'll go try to see what's going on. If I have a territory that's struggling, that I see our UCC data or share data is not good in Pinellas County, I go in and I start pulling that information. But quarterly is automatic. We have branch managers.
Okay, at least quarterly. That's good. So
quarterly,
my
100%.
Quarterly. And if I'm getting in there, I want to make sure that this is a repeatable process for sales leaders.
Yeah.
Now, you've done this enough. You could probably know, step A through Z and how to make this happen, how to hold your salespeople accountable. Well, with all the plates you're spinning, ops manager, service, all the things that you do, I imagine that there's probably something beyond just, your good memory to be able to help you walk through, all right, what is it I need to do inside of this account to make sure that I'm tracking what my salespeople are doing? And you mentioned a few of the things, but if you were going to map that out for another sales leader. So again, I'm a brand new branch manager. I say, Brian, this is a brilliant idea. Why haven't I been doing this? Every quarter, I'm taking a look at my salespeople's accounts. What are the things that I'm looking for inside of those accounts to make this a repeatable process for me so that every quarter I don't have to try to remember what happened 3 months ago?
Well, first things first is quote activity. I mean, quote activity, I would say, is probably your most important. It doesn't matter wins or losses. It's quote activity. Are we actually on the deals? Are we actually talking to the customer? What is the interaction? We can pull that. They have to make an opportunity in the system for every deal they quote. So we can always go back and look. I can pull the information at the end of that quarter and say, okay, all of this was sold, competitive iron, and we only made opportunities on 20% of it. That's a problem. So that's kind of how I step into it initially. I can dive deeper. There's a lot of other different things I can do. But if I was going to tell you the one thing and the easiest way to track what a salesman is doing is really not call reports, because they'll doctor those up.
Yeah, that's easy to doctor.
Go in,
yeah,
exactly. So if you go in and you look at opportunities, which is the big piece of lies, they have opportunity, and we do that. It's a little bit of extra legwork, so we can track these exact things.
Gotcha.
Their opportunity rate is below 30. You're in trouble.
All right, so we had the trigger then. I'm making it repeatable. I'm looking at opportunity, looking at activity on those accounts, not just call reports, but how many things did we actually do inside of that account, including issuing them a quote on something. And so we've got the trigger, we've got it repeatable. Now I want to try to make it improvable. So it's not just for salespeople. I go in once a quarter, I slap you on the wrist and say, don't do that again. And then you don't hear from me for another 3 months, right? I want to make sure my salespeople are implementing what we're talking, about them to do. So what are the things that you would coach a salesperson around that then you could begin to track on a weekly or a monthly basis through the rest of this quarter to say, you're missing out on these 90 accounts, do something about them. How do you make sure the salesperson is actually doing something about them?
I mean, I'll set goals and standards. I mean, a goal is somewhat of a standard. It's an expectation. And I will, as stated before, the first I start out with, hey, you've got 25 of them here that don't even have an open account. Okay. Right. You go open the account, and I'll give them a time frame. You've got 45 days, go open the account. If we get the account up in 30, 45 days, well, then the next step is, all right, now let's give something in their hands. We make target account lists. We do all, but a lot of it is really just getting that sales rep to stay on task. It's so much easier to walk through the doors where people like you than it is to walk through the doors where you feel like you don't have an opportunity. And it's really setting the expectation. I mean, I wish I could say there's a different way to do it, because some guys just need a kick to the butt, but that's kind of what it is. And the expectation is, obviously, if you're extremely poor at it, then you're going to starve yourself in our industry. I won't be working here anyways. Or I will start, as I stated earlier, I will move those accounts to another rep who is getting much higher penetration and maybe to a point of saturation that he can handle another 2025. So we either improve this or that opportunity goes away.
And it's something that we found to be really helpful in this aspect, kind of a bolt onto your system, if you will, is that another reason that salespeople will not touch a lot of accounts for a long time is not because they don't want to touch the accounts. It's because there's no trigger to tell them to do it. And that, inside of their CRM, there's just no next step. I can't remember 100 things at once. I can't remember 100 names that I'm supposed to get in touch with in any one quarter. I have to go to my CRM to find that. And I can either pull up all the names in my CRM or have the next steps given to me. Sean, you told us 3 months ago you wanted to get back in touch with Jim. Go find Jim. So this prospect attrition thing is a big problem we see a lot of sales teams have, and it's not necessarily because of the salesperson's laziness. It's because there's no next step. So that account orphans itself. That's probably a term you're familiar with. So if we've got the trigger, we've got making it repeatable, we've got making it improvable, making sure our salespeople are improving on the end result we want them to achieve. How do you measure this to know it's successful? For you, is it closed deals at the end of the quarter on that salesperson's accounts that they weren't touching before? Is it that those accounts have penetration and activity on them? How do you measure whether this kind of coaching model that we're building is working?
So the first we use is like I said, quote activity. We go through, and our CRM allows it to go in and plug in the amount of machines based on market share FID that were sold in any given period of time, and we can go in and we pull all the quotes, percentage numbers, and you get a participation rate. So if their participation rate is above 60%, as a dealer, we're happy. Okay, as a cat dealer, they probably want you above 80%. It goes on whatever direction you look at. But one other item that I do want to mention that it's actually coming our way that I've actually dealt with in the past is classification of accounts. So we'll classify them into CRM as A, B, C, and D.
Every prospect is created equal, right?
Exactly, and that's not of them. There's some maybe the A prospects have to be seen once every 30 days.
Right.
And then you're touching them, you're doing something. B, obviously, once every 6 weeks down the line. We can actually track when the last time they created any kind of an opportunity or visit with them over a period of time, and it will actually, to help them, create a schedule. And it'll start popping up, hey, this is an A prospect. You haven't seen them in 25 days. You need to get in there.
Get on it.
So that's what we're going to start using, which I think will be very helpful for reps.
Yes, that is just to be able to have that kind of trigger effect, to be able to say, you don't have to remember it. The CRM's job is to help us remember those kind of things. Go touch that account. You told us you wanted it every 25 days. This other account has been 60 days. Go make sure you're talking to them. That's brilliant. It's brilliant, sir. Well, I want everybody to know how to find more out about you, your company, the branch that you're on. I've gotten to see it with my own eyes. It's a tight operation. I think all of the folks that I served with in the military would really appreciate being there and seeing that there's a lot of models. You guys are clean, you're organized, you've got your stuff together. So tell us about, if we're interested in finding more about what you do, heavy equipment, all the great stuff that Alt is doing, how do we find out more about you?
I mean, the best would probably be to go to our Instagram accounts. Funny enough, we talked about it earlier. I mean,
yeah, right.
Information on the website, but the Instagram is pretty clear. It's Alta Equipment Group. You'll actually get exposure not just to Florida group, but Michigan, Illinois, New York. The dealerships actually constantly new product lines being added, and I just look up Alta Equipment Group and I go from there.
It's wonderful, sir. Well, yeah, and that's interesting. That heavy equipment. Where do we need to find out more? Go to Instagram. I love it. Moving into the future,
It is. It's the best. It's the best information.
That's amazing. Well, for everybody that wants to find out more about Chad, feel free to reach out to Alta Equipment. I'm happy to connect you with him directly. If you're like, I know somebody that I think needs that, then I'm happy to connect you in. But for all of the listeners and the viewers out there, make sure that you continue to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for these live streams. Check out our podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all the places that podcasts can be found. And of course, for more sales processes to help you replace hope with certainty in your sales, to get better results, get better performance out of your teams, make sure you're visiting www.bulletproofselling.systems. Sean Rhodes here with Mr. Chad Hastings. Chad, it's been a pleasure serving the sales community with you today. Let's go out there and make selling bulletproof.
I appreciate it. Thank you.